seated, court is back in session.
All right. First case we'll take up is State of Tennessee versus Megan Boswell. I need to bring her in the courtroom. Case 72860. Ms. Boswell's down in court. It's come to my attention that first thing we need to take up is a request by Ms. Boswell. Raise your right hand. Solemnly swear from testimony about to give you the truth, the whole truth, and the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
So what's on your mind?
Due to differences of opinion on my case with Mr. Strolls, I feel uncomfortable concurrently, going forward and representing. I would ask the court to appoint me counsel.
Differences of opinion, tell me, you have to be more specific than that. Because at the end of the day, whether the lawyer agrees with whatever your decision is, he or she is bound to go forward, if it's within the bounds of the law, if it's legal, bound to go forward with what you want as far as your defense. So, wait just a second.
Your Honor, we just don't agree on how to proceed going forward with my case. And we're having a lot of difficulties, even preparing for today.
Judge, that
I talked to her before we came out here, talked to the state, there it is. I met with Ms. Boswell a few times leading up to the day of operation. I have to say, in all candor with the court, that our relationship has deteriorated to the point where we are not able to effectively prepare for the next year. Just have concerns moving forward. If we can't work together to
here for, I don't know how you could be at odds with preparing for today's hearing. The state wants certain pictures in, you want certain pictures kept out. There, I mean, there's no, unless she wanted these pictures to come in at trial. I mean, that's, it's not making sense to me, is what I'm trying to say. And I know there's a lot that you have talked about with her, that she has talked about with you, and you can't tell me, and I understand that. But I'm gonna have to have more than, well, we just don't, you know, what it sounds like is, well, he didn't get a good enough plea deal, or he thinks I should plead, I wanna go to trial. You know, those are not valid reasons to fire your lawyer. If that's it, then the request is denied. But if it goes, it's gonna have to go further than that for me to consider this. Because this is gonna delay, this case has been delayed. A lot of TBI getting information back, but part of it's been because there's so much material that you've had to go through to get ready to even get to where we are right now. And literally, if we change lawyers today, that's gonna delay this thing probably a whole nother year. So I need to know why I should put this case on a year long. If you can tell me.
Judge, are you asking me?
Either one. I'm asking Clark's Road,
Your Honor, we're having differences. I can't go into a lot of details. I don't want to give up like the plan for my defense, but there are witnesses and things that I feel like need to be done that we're having differences on as well.
Well, I guess I'm gonna ask the next question is that you understand whatever lawyer you have, they have to decide, you know, you can tell them to subpoena everybody in the sheriff's department, all 450 employees, however many there are. But to have a witness come in here and testify, they have to be relevant to the case. They have to have knowledge about the case. So if you're just wanting him to subpoena, I've had cases where, especially in drug cases, the defendant wanted his lawyer to subpoena 25 people from around the state who are in TDOC to come up here and be brought to Sullivan County. Well, if they had information, that's fine. If they don't have information, no, they're not coming up here. They're not going to do it. And Mr. Sproles or any lawyer has to make a determination as to whether, one, there's relevance to the testimony, and two, whether it's within, that relevance is within the bounds of our rules of procedure that you could even bring them in to testify. So,
Your Honor, the witnesses I'm talking about are like forensic evidence witnesses that I feel like I need for my defense.
Mr. Sproles, you want to comment on that or respond?
Judge, I said my position. My concerns are just what I stated. I think our ability to communicate with together is
You understand that if I grant your request, and I'm not saying I'm going to, but if I grant your request, it's going to delay your case significantly.
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
And there's no guarantee that your next lawyer is going to agree that whatever forensic examinations you think need to be done, you understand me?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Mr. Rawls, I have to ask you this question. Do you believe that the attorney-client relationship is at a point where it's irrevocably broken and cannot be fixed?
And Judge, I'm not trying to be evasive in my answer, but I don't know. At this point, as far as just gauging on preparing for today, I would say yes. If you want me to continue to try to mend things, I serve with pleasure before. Going forward, I can't say, but if you ask me just based on preparations for today's hearing, I would answer yes.
Based on your answer, Mr. Rawls, I'm going to deny the request at this time. But I would expect that if you get to that point, you would notify the court sooner than later.
Yes, sir.
All right, the next thing is we're here on the state's amended second motion, amendment with regard to photographs. General, are you ready to proceed on that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Rawls, are you ready to proceed on that?
We are, Judge.
Go ahead, General.
Your Honor, the first point of business is we would like to introduce exhibits 1 through 28, which have been stipulated to be introduced for the purpose of this hearing. And Mr. Sproles has an identical copy of the exhibits. There are a number of exhibits that are not stipulated that should be admitted for trial, but for the purpose of this hearing, we have 28 exhibits marked for this hearing. Is that correct, Mr. Sproles?
That's correct.
So we'd like to introduce that at this time.
And Judge, just to add to that, two of those exhibits are not photographs. They're the CV of Dr. Luce.
And the other is her report.
Yes. Other than that, they're pictures.
And of those, the first 11 have been stipulated to for this, not contested. It will be 12 through 26 that will be the center of this hearing. That will be for contention,
That's
whether
correct.
admissible or not at trial.
And I think, Judge, there's a previously filed agreed written submission for stipulation like that.
There is. It's in the court. It's filed yesterday, day before yesterday. So, from this exhibits 1 through 11, by stipulation and by agreement of the parties, will be available as evidence in the trial. The exhibits that I've been handed also have descriptions attached to each one. As well as 12 through 26. just so the record's clear, the two exhibits that are not photographs are exhibit 27, which is Dr. Alushnik's CD, and exhibit 28, which is Dr. Alushnik's report.
You know, we also have an agreed order that we'd like to, protective order we'd like to submit. Essentially, what we've agreed to, that all pleadings, exhibits, photographs, and other documents that are part of this hearing be posted for sale at the conclusion of this hearing.
And we're gonna grant that for publicity reasons. That's not an exhibit.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take the photographs one at a time. Again, exhibit 12. Gentlemen, you wanna talk about them individually?
You know, what we plan to do is, our first witness will be Agent Fraley, to set the background for those photographs. And then once his testimony and cross-examination is concluded, then I will call Dr. Malushnik and we will go, first we will qualify her as a witness. We'll put a stipulation to CV, but not as her qualification. I will place her, then I will request that she be found qualified. I'll tender her, if the court finds her qualified, then we will place her on the stand to testify about photographs 12 through 26. 27 and 28 will be again, she will be referring to the report and the CV, written in it's there, it's stipulated, as far as her qualifications. Yes.
No.
Not for the trial, just for this hearing.
Okay, first.
State Health Specialist Brian Fraser.
State your name.
Brian Fraser.
Solemnly swear upon testimony about to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, sir.
Yes, sir, I do.
Sit right there and speak in your mouth.
Please state your name
Brian Fraley,
and where are you employed?
Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
What is your position there?
I'm a special agent criminal investigator,
And how long have you been in that position?
16 years.
As part of your assignment at the TBI, did you assist in an investigation into the disappearance of Evelyn Boswell in February of 2020?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What was your role in that investigation?
The Sullivan County Sheriff's Department called TBI requesting assistance, simply to help locate and find the missing person report, which was Miss Boswell. Myself and other agents responded to assist with them.
As part of that investigation, did you interview the defendant on February 25th, 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
And during that interview, did the defendant tell you that Evelyn was dead?
Yes.
And how did she claim that Evelyn died?
She claimed that it was an accidental death, that she and her boyfriend at the time were sleeping in the bed with her. And when they woke up that morning, that she was unresponsive and opined that it was that she had been smothered by the rollover sleeping on her during the night.
And on March 6th, 2020, did you find Evelyn's remains?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Can you please describe to the court how that came to be?
On that date, we received a call from the defendant's father talking about property, a storage shed on the property that he believed it may have been valuable for us to look at and search, so we did respond and search that. There was a playhouse, a described playhouse behind that we found the body in that playhouse in the trash can.
As soon as you recognized what you thought could be Evelyn's remains, what did you do?
I made a call through our chain of command, also to the PSU Forensic Pathology Department. Dr. Smith and Ms. Parsons responded to assess the crime scene.
And who, if anyone, directed the process of collecting that evidence?
Dr. Smith, the forensic pathologist.
Your Honor, if you could please hand the exhibits to Agent Fraley. Agent Fraley, before today's hearing, did you review each of the 26 photographs that are before you there?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And does each of the photographs fairly and accurately show what you saw on March 6, 2020?
Yes, ma'am, they do.
If you could please turn to Exhibit 1.
I'm there.
Does Exhibit 1 accurately depict where the remains were before you collected them?
Yes, they were inside of a trash can.
And do these photographs, 1 through 26, accurately represent the steps that you took to collect and preserve this evidence?
Yes, ma'am, they do.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Ms. Close. Agent Fraley, when you conducted this search, who was present? Sergeant said.
It was myself, Special Agent Gratz, detectives from the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department.
Do you recall who was
Yes, Detective Gratz and Detective Michelle Hill.
And it was four of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, from looking at the exhibits there, the remains were moved outside, or that, am I viewing those correctly? Did you take everything outside before you?
Yes, sir. So when we opened the playhouse door, there was a trash can and 2 bags of trash that just didn't add up to being there. They looked, this playhouse had not been occupied or played in for, lack of a better term, for many years. A lot of spider webs through my opinion. This trash can, 2 trash bags, were just inside the door, and you could tell, I could tell, or it was my belief that they were placed there recently. And by what I mean recently is compared to the other items within the playhouse. So within probably months or weeks possibly, if they just looked out of place. By removing those, they were just inside the door 1 to 2 feet. This playhouse had a porch on it, so I would simply remove that from that location inside 2 to 3 feet, 1 to 2 feet, just to the porch 1 to 2 feet outside the door, by simply picking it up, raising it, and placing it down on the porch.
And so, at what point during that process do you realize, hey, you need to call this in?
So, from interviewing with Ms. Boswell previously, she had made statements as to a particular trash can that was consistent with this trash can. She had also made specific statements to what the victim was wearing, clothing, which she described as a purple fleece onesie with penguins on it, and that she was wrapped in a gray and white fleece blanket. So after removing the trash can and the bags of trash to the front porch, again, just pick it up and turn around and place it on the porch, if I recall correctly, there was a black trash bag on top of the trash can. After removing that, I observed a leg and a foot attached. On top of this trash, wrapped in that same described fleece blanket that was gray and white in color. it was consistent with an infant of the described age of the missing victim.
Okay. And so then at that point, is your first call to Dr. Smith? Or what do you do?
First call was, if I recall correctly, sir, was chain of command, DA's office, and then to the forensic pathologist. I think that was to, she's now director of operations, but at the time she was investigator Laura Parsons.
Can you state how much time there was between when you made the discovery and when Dr. Smith got there to take over?
Not specifically, without looking at the case file, but I would estimate probably an hour.
Is that something that would be reflected in your notes?
Yes, sir. Or in Age of Gratz's file.
Okay. During that hour, any other individuals appear on the scene?
Yes, many arrived, because of the significance of the case, that there had been a lot of detectives, special agents, and others working the case, and that there was several that were there.
Let me interrupt you. You said several there. Are we talking about law enforcement officers?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of anybody who is not a law enforcement officer who did it?
Like I said, DA's office personnel arrived. If there was, I'm not aware of it.
Okay, all right.
But let me rephrase. I think the coroner was called. Outside of that, I'm not really understanding.
And then once Dr. Smith arrived and took over, did you continue to remain there?
Yes, I assisted with the decision was made that the processing of the body and the remains was to simply remove everything from the trash can there instead of transporting it to their facility in Johnson City. So I was part of that, and basically that her direction was removing everything by layers as you just go through a trash can until you get to the body that was wrapped in the contents it was wrapped in. But it was laid out there. The body bag was placed, and then we went through that, removing layer by layer until we did get to the body of Evan Boswell.
And so, Jim Hutchins, you're familiar with all those pictures. It's fair to say that that's a progression, those pictures are a progression of exactly what you described.
It's absolutely, yes, sir, what it is. It goes through each step of, like I said, removing those layers, if you will, until we get to the body of Evan Boswell.
And you were present the entire time?
Yes, sir.
And was it you specifically who was removing those layers?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Agent Burke.
Thank you.
Reader.
Yeah, I'll be excused, Ron.
We don't think you're going
No, we call Dr. I'll let her state her name.
Ma'am, state your name.
Dorinka Middlestick Fulton.
You solemnly swear or affirm testimony about to give the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
First, Your Honor, we call her for the purpose of qualifying her as an expert witness. Again, you've stated your name. Where are you employed?
I'm the chief medical examiner for Knox and Anderson County and medical director of the East Tennessee Vision Forensic Center in Knoxville,
And how long have you had that position, that title?
The acting chief and chief since 2008, 2010, to county involvement, but I've been in Knoxville since 2002 and started working there as assistant medical examiner for Knox County.
And now I'm going to ask you about your education. We'll come back to a little more information about your employment. Did you attend and complete medical school?
Yes,
And where was that?
that was University of Rijeka, spelled R-I-J-E-K-A in Croatia, 1986, 87. That's where I did my internship, and then that's where I worked as assistant or assistant in Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology, where I taught medical students and did research for about 4 years.
And after you completed medical school, did you get additional education?
Yes, I relocated to United States, Chicago area, 1991. I had to complete my studies in pharmacology and neuroscience, and I obtained PhD in neuroscience and pharmacology at Loyola University Medical Center. And during that time, during the last 3 years of that, I also joined the Department of Pathology, where I started training in pathology, anatomic pathology, and neuropathology. And then last year was forensic pathology training at the Cook County Office of the Medical Examiner in Chicago.
And are you board certified as a medical physician, as a medical doctor?
Yes, I'm actually licensed to practice medicine in the state of Tennessee. I have active license here. I have inactive license in Illinois. And then I'm board certified in anatomic pathology and forensic pathology.
And are you do you have membership in any medical related societies?
Yes, mostly related to pathology, CAP or College of American Pathologists, ASCP, which is the American Society of Clinical Pathologists. Forensic Pathology Society are mainly Academy of Forensic Sciences and the National Association of Medical Examiners, and I also belong, and I'm actually of Board of Directors for the Knoxville Academy of Medicine, and also I was the delegate for the Tennessee Medical Association.
And you've published numerous articles regarding the field of pathology, is that correct?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, you've also had a presentation regarding asphyxia in children, is that correct?
Yes, and a presentation on the strangulation cases.
And you stated where you're employed, and you specialize in a particular field of medicine in that area, within that job and that job title.
Right, that my subspecialty is actually forensic pathology, and that's where I'm also certified in.
And if you would explain what is forensic pathology and what do you do as a forensic pathologist?
Forensic pathology is a subspecialty of anatomic pathology, which deals with examinations of tissues and organs taken during surgery, rendering diagnosis, anatomic diagnosis for different illnesses, from infectious diseases to cancers. Forensic pathology actually deals with the performance of autopsies and medical legal death investigation. Medical legal death investigation in the sense that the knowledge how to approach forensic case starts at the scene with the scene investigation, medical legal scene investigation. And then the forensic pathology takes that information along with the postmortem examination, which frequently is a complete autopsy, accompanied by ancillary studies to answer the question to what really happened, what the cause and manner of that is. And forensic pathology actually really focuses on cases when the death is sudden, unexpected, without medical attendance or due to violence.
And have you been qualified or testified as an expert in the field of pathology and as in the role of a forensic, as a medical examiner?
Forensic pathologist, yes.
And in Tennessee?
Yes, many counties, because we cover about 23 surrounding counties in the autopsy service.
That would be Knox County, Northeast Tennessee, and in Sullivan County. Have you been qualified previously?
Yes, actually, I've been here on a couple of cases, yes.
So, Your Honor, you do have the stipulated CD, which also has more detailed publications and societies and other information. At this time, we would move to have Dr. Mussler qualified as an expert in the field of forensic pathology.
Mr. Scruggs? No objection, Judge. Should be declared to be an expert in forensic pathology. the purpose of this one.
Your Honor, I'm also going to refer to exhibit number 28, which is the amended report by Dr. Malusny as well, which we will discuss briefly, but it is there and it contains her findings and the information she relied on in those findings. So we'll start with that, Dr. Malusny. Could you review case materials that were provided by the state, our office, regarding the death of Evelyn Boswell?
Yes.
And what materials did you review briefly?
The materials involved all the investigative information, including the law enforcement and also the Office of the Medical Examiner, specifically the Forensic Center, forensic autopsy, the scene photographs, the autopsy photographs, and then, of course, the results of any ancillary studies such as histology, x-rays, and any other.
And all those items are detailed in your report.
That's correct.
And that includes the autopsy report of Dr. Schmidt, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, based on your review of the case and your experience and training, did you form an opinion about the cause and manner of death of Evelyn Boswell?
Yes.
And can you state that within a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Yes.
And what is your opinion as to the cause of death?
So I stated that I was a little bit more specific with Dr. Schmidt who performed the autopsy, and I stated that the cause of death was asphyxia with 4 different mechanisms being present, and the manner of death was homicide.
And you refer to in the asphyxia as it's a combination of positional, confined space, traumatic compressions, and medical via smothering with aluminum foil over the head as the tops of asphyxia. Is that correct?
That's correct, and I called the last that you described as a mechanical, yes.
And can you just briefly define those terms for the court for the purpose of this hearing?
So the asphyxial death essentially means that there was a lack of oxygen that prevented the child from breathing and caused her death. The mechanisms and the 4 main mechanisms that I listed, positional is because she was upside down in a trash can with the inability of the lungs and the diaphragm to function properly. Confined space because there was a trash can with a really very limited capacity that was actually also inside the trash can. She was inside the trash bag, and then on top of that she was also wrapped in a blanket, which would create confined space asphyxia with the lack of sufficient oxygen coming to her. And finally, mechanical and traumatic sometimes can overlap, but mechanical means that there was a mechanical obstruction to the airway, upper airway, which pertains to the foil and the blanket being wrapped around the head tightly. And then traumatic meaning that because of the bend, kind of reverse S shape, that she was sort of compressed in the can, actually that would cause compression not only on the diaphragm but also on the chest wall, the ribs and the intercostal muscle that would not actually move efficiently to enable her to breathe. So that would be final traumatic asphyxia, inability for her chest to expand.
And you have reviewed the autopsy report, as you stated, of Dr. Schmidt. Did you agree with her opinions and her findings?
Yes, I agreed. It was a well-done autopsy. The description, there was nothing that I could object to. Was correct and detailed. And the only, I guess, slight difference is in the sense that Dr. Schmidt called because of that kind of homicidal cause of death, left it kind of open with the focus on essentially asphyxial component, and I just went a little bit more specific because of the way she was positioned, packaged, and wrapped and found at the scene.
Is it your opinion, within a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that Evelyn was not killed by being rolled over by an adult?
No, she was too old for that. I've never seen a case of a 14-month-old being rolled over by an adult of average size.
So when we're talking about asphyxiation, we're not talking about that when a child's rolled over by an adult.
No, we're not talking about the accidental asphyxia. Accidental asphyxia happens in our field actually, unfortunately, quite often in small infants with unsafe sleeping environment conditions. but she's too old for that, she's too big for that, and the, you know, environment described how she was found was not conducive to, that sort of rollover death.
Now, I want to talk to you in general before we get to 12 through 26. I want to ask you a few questions in general about the photographs that we have here. You do have copies of all those photographs of exhibit 1 through 26. Is that correct?
Yes.
So let me ask you, how important were the photos in assisting you in determining the cause and manner of death?
Well, they're crucial, and whenever I testify in court and answering that question, I always say that the forensic autopsy cannot be done in vacuum. Forensic autopsy actually starts at the scene, and the investigative information and the scene information is actually crucial, not only how to, not just to make it a case of medical examiner jurisdiction, but also how to conduct the investigation, and then especially is important in determining manner of death.
And I want to ask you, how did the photos, and again, in general sense, assist you in forming an opinion as to the manner of death? When we step back, we talked about the manner of death, but what was the cause of death? We talked about the cause of death, but not the manner of death. And what was your finding within a reasonable degree of medical science?
The manner of death was a homicide because, unlike accidental asphyxia, Evelyn could not put herself in that particular position. Had to be action of an adult to create that environment for a positional confined space mechanical and traumatic asphyxia.
So, in a general sense, how did those photographs, in a general sense, help you form an opinion regarding manner of death and cause of death?
So the photographs, scene photographs, and the autopsy photographs are actually our evidence. That's how we objectively document what we describe and what we find. And then in cases of asphyxia, which are always complex cases to work up, they're really crucial in explaining and detailing the not just the cause, but then the mechanism of asphyxia.
Did the photographs show the means and manner of the placement of the body in the trash can?
That's correct.
And did they also show the location of the body in relation to the trash can?
Yes,
And the position of the body in the trash can?
that's correct.
And the location of the blanket that you've referred to, it's been referred to in previous testimony that you found, is that
That's
correct?
correct.
And the location of aluminum foil and the amount of aluminum foil.
Yes, and how it
And
was applied,
The
yes.
photographs showed the size of the baby, the
That's
child, and the location of the trash can in relation to the child. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
And the condition of the body at the time that the child was discovered.
Yes, and that's why we always say they have to be done sequentially, detailed, in orderly fashion, because that's how investigation actually proceeds, and the documentation has to be accurate.
And because this child was in a trash can with other items, there was a decompositional byproducts, and those photographs helped you see what they were and their contact with the foil and the blanket and the effect that would have on the body. Is that correct?
That's correct, because unfortunately there was advanced decomposition present, and with that there's a lot of artifact that can be created, but that can also shift and change the relationships between these objects and the body, and that's very important to document because the purge fluid, the fat liquefaction, the presence of maggot larvae and the pupae, and their activity actually, or documentation of their activity is very important to be seen and understood, because that can actually change and kind of shift some of those coverings and create potentially false picture how really she was originally kind of packaged in that trash can.
Were the photos relevant to establishing the layers of materials on the child?
Absolutely, and that's why our approach is always, whether it's done at the scene or whether it's done in the forensic center, all those elements have to be taken with the body under the jurisdiction of the medical examiner, and then approached layer by layer and photographed as such.
Now, I'm going to ask you your opinion, if you have one. Would the photographs assist jurors in determining the manner of cause of death?
Absolutely, I think they're crucial because the reading of report or listening to me or Dr. Schmidt talk about it, I don't think it really would create a proper picture of what was really found at the scene. And especially because the trash can argument can always be found that trash cans and trash bags can have foil, and they can have all different other elements and debris from maybe food or whatever. That's why I think it's very important to see that these are all real elements associated with her death, and then they have to be present and shown as such for the jury to understand how they were originally applied and the shift that happened, why it happened, and that can be explained to them.
And with these photographs, Agent Fraley talked about the progression in stages and collection, and photographing the evidence of this child. Would the photographs assist in understanding that progression in those stages of evidence retrieval, collection? Would it assist them in that manner?
Absolutely, and they also show that nothing was staged, nothing was made up. This is all real, in real time removal of the evidence, documentation of that evidence, and submission of the evidence under the chain of custody, because that's another important part of the workup of a case like that the chain of custody is maintained, and that the documentation is proper, and it can be objectively then retrieved at any point in time, including the legal proceedings.
Would the photographs assist jurors in determining the elements of crime, things like whether it was accidental or whether it was intentional?
Absolutely, yes.
And would it help them visualize what you've described from a testimony that's been elicited by either the state or the defense attorney with the court?
Yes.
And would your testimony, in your opinion, be by itself be adequate to articulate your findings before a jury as an expert witness?
I think a lot of those elements would be lost because for example, I'm a very visual person, and unless I see it myself, I might miss some important elements of the entire case, how she was found and what was really involved in the recovery of the body, and therefore also understanding of 4 different mechanisms of asphyxia. I think all of that might get lost in just me talking, especially I'm a fast talker. And I think maybe that would definitely affect their ability to follow and understand exactly what was really involved in the death of Lethal.
Now, as to photos 1 through 11, they've been stipulated and they're not an issue. But I want you to, if you can, describe how they relate, again, in a general sense, to the remaining photos that are that are an issue. If you could explain how those first 11 kind of set the other 12 through 26 in context.
So in the forensic field in general, there's a big discussion as far as how the evidence can be presented or the findings of the scene can be presented, and then especially to a forensic pathologist. And that's why there are certain laws and there are certain rules in our field that number one, the state of Tennessee, or any state for that matter that has a medical examiner system, the moment, I know it kind of sounds pretty cold, but the body, the serum belongs to the medical examiner and cannot be manipulated without the medical examiner, forensic pathologist being present. And that's actually one of the reasons why we do it the way we do it. With that, that reassures the court or the legal system that things are done under the supervision of the individual who is in charge of that body, and that's the medical examiner, forensic pathologist. And then the next level is that how I'm going to actually describe that the child was not just swallowed in the blanket, but actually it was covered in a blanket with the face being completely covered in a thick fleece blanket. I can talk about it, but I think the jury has to see that to understand that this is not just haphazard blanket on top of a child or swallowed child. This is actually a child whose face and head are wrapped in a blanket that is actually on top of foil that also wraps the upper part of the body, including the head, very tightly. And I think that needs to be shown to the jury to understand actually the gravity of the situation, how she was found. and why would that pertain to, for example, mechanical mechanism of asphyxia. And then, of course, positioning of that body, how she was found, not just upside down, but in that contorted position that would prevent her from breathing. And just kind of overall disposal of this child, I think, is remarkable. For forensic pathologists, just to see a decomposed child in an autopsy room, on the autopsy table, would this pretty much create, depending on the case, the different findings. I think the scene, especially on asphyxial death, is crucial to show how all of that ties into the cause and manner of death, and especially elements of the report that are just purely objective medical findings. And I think that's why the jury needs to see the scene and all the kind of levels and then phases of body recovery.
And you heard Agent Frederick's testimony that he came and he moved the trash can simply from the inside door to the porch, and then forensic pathology came and directed it. And those photographs, like in one, shows it's in a trash can. Is that the fact that it shows the progression, the stage, and the location of the body from the initial examination in those photographs? So those are important to set up what you see in 12 through 26.
That's correct, yes. There was a minimal manipulation until the medical examiner came in and directed the body recovery.
Is it also important the fact that those photographs, if you have an opinion, that they show the body with accuracy and clarity? Those photographs, in your opinion, for your purpose of testifying today, and when you begin to make your findings, did you find the photographs that they were clear and accurate based on the reports and information you had?
Yes.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to start with photo 12, and Your Honor, I'm going to ask you, do you want me to go question her about photo 12, and then have cross-examination after, or do you want me to go through all the questions, all the photographs, and then have Mr. Scholes come and ask collectively afterwards?
I think go through all of them.
Okay.
Let Mr. Strolls.
Come back, okay. I just want to make sure.
If I can interrupt, Jim, I apologize. Ms. Boswell has been talking to during this testimony. Part of our problem that we indicated earlier was that she's not gone through these pictures. She would like the opportunity to do that. She's asking if we would hold the testimony and allow her the opportunity to at least look through these pictures.
We'll take 15 minutes. We got 15 minutes.
Court will be in recess for 15 minutes.